And we're live. Guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your podcaster. Man, I am so excited about this. This guy, Matt Firestein, and I went to high school together, and we didn't talk for probably 30 years. I had him on my podcast when it was still an audio podcast, and I didn't even know who he was. I talked to him for an hour. But then when I had the video podcast, I was looking at him and saying, "Where'd you go to high school? Indiana?" "Where in Indiana?" "South Bend." "Where in South Bend, Indiana?" He's like, "Oh, God damn it, Jay." I know you. I know. So without further ado, man, how you doing tonight, Matt?
Hey, good, Jay. It's great to hear you. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for having me on. Ready to talk some muskies, walleyes up here in Detroit, Michigan. So I'm very, very grateful that you asked me to come on. I'm excited, always excited to talk to you.
Man, that's great. That's great. I'd like to talk to you too. And, you know, guys, I even lived up there. Gosh, I was on Selfridge. I think I got there in 90 and left in 92. Then I went up to even a better place to fish, which was Oscoda, Michigan. And that was my Air Force career, man. I mean, all I did was fish. Well, sometimes I controlled air traffic too, but
yeah.
Sometimes I controlled air traffic too.
Sometimes.
You know? Sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what's crazy, Jay, is that I'm right now. I live not even five miles from Selfridge. Not even 4 miles. I'm at that boat ramp.
Do they still have F-16s there?
I don't think so. That they've got the Warthogs and they've got the big transport carriers. I think they might call them C-130s, but I'm not.
Oh yeah,
great. But the F-16s, I only see them once in a while, very, very seldom. And I know before the air show they are, but as far as I know, they're not there. They're not regular. They're, as far as I know.
Well, man. Anyways, everybody, I'd like to welcome you to this show. I'd like to welcome you, Matt. So what I want to talk to you about is something I don't hear about a whole lot is jigging for muskies. That's crazy, man. I'd love to do that. I can't imagine how hard a muskie hits when you're jigging vertically.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And when you're dealing with the big rivers that have good current, I mean, it's a very productive way in that when the fish are in the rivers, oftentimes they'll go to the bottom. So they'll be from the weed line, you know, as deep as they want. There's no thermocline in a river because the oxygen's mixed, but oftentimes they'll work the edges. And like on the St. Clair River, our weed lines will be in about 20 foot. So from the first break to the secondary break will be about 28 feet. So your strips will vary in size, but there'll be pockets. So it'll be 25, 25, 25, 27, and that's where they'll sit. And then 25, 25, 20. They'll sit behind those hills and in the little indentations of the bottom. And vertical jigging's very successful at, having your bait in the target zone going right over them. And if you have that kind of current, you're talking, like, say, the Detroit River, somewhere between 1.5 miles to 2 miles an hour. You're going downstream, and your bait's always in the strike zone. So it's phenomenal.
But we were talking before. I fished with your nephew on the Illinois River, and I've done a lot of vertical jigging.
Yeah,
and walleyes. Well, I didn't catch many walleyes. I hear they're in there now, but they weren't when I fished it. You're just talking. And that's a bite, and that's all you get. They come up and they snap at it, and then they're gone. I guess if the blood doesn't explode in their mouth, they're smart. But I bet a muskie just.
Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest hits you usually get, and they can hit it generally two different ways. They'll either pin it down, and that's a hard strike when they pin it to the bottom. Or they'll loop up and they'll swoop up for it. So you'll have, big baits like these. This is like
Holy
like imitation shad. And so when it comes up, they'll swoop up like this and grab it and engulf it. So all of a sudden, as you're trying a controlled drop, you feel nothing at all. You don't feel the little spinners coming down. Yeah, and then you got to reel down and set the hook. But
okay. So you have enough time to reel down.
Before they spit it. But what I will say is when you're doing the vertical jigging, we'll always run wire. So here's a really nice Grant rod. And you can see down here, you got 220-pound fluorocarbon.
Wow.
And then, 175 wire. And you always want to run wire with the vertical jigging because they'll come up and swallow the whole bait. And all you'll have is the leader coming out of his mouth. So the wire's imperative or you're going to kill fish. That's just the way it is. So they'll swoop up, swallow the whole thing. Or like I said, they'll on the drop, about when it's about to hit the bottom, they'll pin it. They'll just come down and pin it. And that's when that rod just about gets ripped right out of your hands. It's just a massive, hard strike. Best strike in muskie fishing as far as I'm concerned.
That is so exciting. That's what I liked about casting spoons for salmon. They just hit it so hard. And then it's on. That's what I like about redfish. When I'm burning, I like to burn swim baits. And a 20-pound redfish just grabs it and goes the other way. That is, you better be holding on to your rod. And that's what I tell people.
Pretty exciting.
That's why I don't allow people to borrow my rods anymore.
Yeah, right. That's one of the things about the vertical jigging, Jay. You've got here's a Bondi bait. This is John Bondi. He made this is one of his bigger ones. He lives right up here in Windsor, and he's got a great collection of different colors, different sizes. But the Bondi bait's real good.
So you jig that?
Yeah, vertical jig it. So
how heavy is that? Because the Detroit River has a heck of a current.
Yeah, this one's about 6 ounces, I think.
Okay. 6 ounces,
and it'll hit bottom, and you rip it up. Probably the dirtier the water, the tighter to the bottom you want to run it. The cleaner the water, the higher you can bring it up. But you want a controlled drop on it. You just drop it with the bait, but keep contact with that bait so you can feel anything that happens. But here's a big red October tube. And if you're gonna vertical jig this, you take the front off. So you'll have two big singles back here. I don't know if you can see them, but out of the top of it, you'll have two singles if you take this treble off the bottom. And that way you can drag it or you can vertically jig it. Same thing. I'm really
getting into that with single hooks now. I'm taking a lot of the trebles off of my crankbaits and just putting single hooks on them because they pin it better. With a treble hook will hook them better, but what I say is a single hook brings them back to the boat.
Yeah. For some reason, they do a great job of hooking. They get them in the side a lot versus the treble getting caught up top or getting two pins in them where they can work themselves loose. I don't know. I have good luck with both.
I got a question for you. Do you ever catch smallmouth bass fishing for your muskies?
Just when we're trolling small crankbaits, that's about it. We don't catch casting for them. They don't bite these bigger baits. Like this is a mojo. Yeah,
they wouldn't bite that. No.
Yeah, and those aren't even big baits. Those are just for vertical jigging. So no, I don't usually get them unless we're trolling with small baits. So when we run our charters, we have two different boats. We've got a 31-foot Sea Ray Amberjack for up to 5 guys. It's about $950 for 8 hours with 5 people, and we usually contact and we get 5 muskies, about 5 average a trip. So if you got 5 guys, everybody gets to reel one in, and they're pretty sought after fish across the Midwest. So everybody that I talk to that fishes them are like, it's the fish at 10,000 casts. But I got to tell you, Jay, back when that term was keyed, they had small boats, bad equipment, no big outboards, electronics were junk, and they didn't even know how many fish were in a lake. Nowadays it's all about fish density. Is it fish of 10,000 casts? Well, if you got 5 fish in 1,000 acres, yeah, it's going to be the fish at 10,000 casts. But if you have a good population of fish like your old Lake Shabanaw, Madison chain, Kawartha chain, those lakes have a good density of fish that you can contact. So our lake, we do good. It's a great lake. So we got the big boat for the trolling, and then we got a small boat. And when I mean small, Jay, you might get jealous, but it's a 26-foot Everglades.
26 foot's a small boat.
Yeah, that's the small boats, the Everglades, and that's if you know anything about boats, the Everglades is one of the tops. And that one we run 2 trolling or up to 3 casting on that boat. But the lake is big, so I was sponsored by Lund, running lawns, and it seemed like every 5 years I was going to need a new lawn. They were not falling apart by any means, but certainly showing their wear. So I went to this Everglades, and hopefully it's going to last a good long time.
Well, we have a couple of comments here from the audience I'd like to talk about. First of all, and foremost, one of my favorite people, this is International Freshwater Fishing Hall of Famer Jim Grant of Grant Rods. He said, "Hi guys, Catfish Firestein is a legendary angler. Nobody better, period. Matt thinks and lives like a fish." I would agree. What a fabulous guest on Jay Angel's premier podcast. Thank you very much. Jim Grant, what a great person, man.
Man, class act and the best rods in the business by far. That's exactly what I was showing you. All Grant rods, Big Dog series, and then every trolling rod I got are these Kevlar back trolling rods that are just second to none. I've never had one problem with one rod. They handle the fish from small to big. They don't screw with the action of the baits. And then you got Jim Grant, Hall of Famer, just class act, stands behind his product, all American made. He's the best.
And I can't imagine what kind of force is on that rod when you're probably going 3 miles an hour trolling, aren't you?
Sometimes 5 miles an hour.
So you're going 5 miles an hour, and a 40-pound fish grabs it and goes the other way, and you have on you probably 200-pound test. I can't imagine that kind of force. That would break a lesser quality rod. Snap.
Yeah, and that's the deal. You run the best. I got Everglade boats. I run Grant rods. There's no failures. Stealth tackle. It runs all my leaders, the best fluorocarbons, swivels, all my terminal tackle. You got to run the best because, if you break off, you just killed a fish, and these fish, like you can see, you see in the background there, those fish are 15 to 25 years old, and they're all freaks. That genetically they're freaks. A lot of muskies won't even make 50 inches. The ones in the background there are all over 52 and a half. So they're, you just can't have any failures, and they're fish of a lifetime. And I've got clients that are paying a lot of money to have a shot at one of these fish. And so, Grant rods, it's a no-brainer. It's the best.
Yeah, when you fish for a living, you don't take chances or unnecessary chances.
Yeah.
You got to get those fish back. You got to get them in the boat, and you have to be able to rely on your equipment. there's that's it. That's it, because if somebody loses a 50 plus, yeah, they're special fish. Just like I think about speckled trout, smallmouth bass, this special fish.
Yeah, the muskie is such a sought after fish and so finicky and challenging to catch. To have any kind of equipment failure is can't happen, especially if this is what you do for a living. And not only that, Jay, I fish in a lot of tournaments. Same thing. The money's on the line. I mean, some of the fish I've caught, I think I've probably won $40,000 on on spanky baits, bucktails. They're the best made bucktails. They make them with 71 gauge wire, not like thin wire, real like bicycle spoke wire. They use 40 gauge blades, and I just run the best because when you get that big one on, you can't have anything break. You can't bend out any hooks. You got to get them into the boat. So it's good. This year, matter of fact, Jay, we got the King of the Lake. We won the King of the Lake and then the local MOMC, which is the biggest muskie club in the area. So muskies, Michigan, Ontario Muskie Club, all the best anglers in the state that fish this body of water that want to be a part of the club. And then in Canada, we won that one with the longest fish this year, 54 5/8.
Wow. Congratulations, man.
Yeah. King of the Lake.
I would like to say Matt Firestein is the outfitter for Whopper Stopper Muskie Charters.
Yeah.
Look him up, guys. Whopper Stopper Muskie Charters. And you want to go out and fish with this guy, he's the best. And he fishes on a body of water. A guy was asking me why I couldn't go full time as a guide. Well, I wasn't fishing Lake St Clair. Lake St Clair is just a special body of water. It's huge. What is it, like 250,000 acres?
Yeah, 270.
I was pretty close. 270,000 acres. And it has great populations of walleyes, muskies, smallmouth. Has world-class smallmouth bass fishing, world-class muskie fishing, world-class. I mean, Lake St. Clair is actually a highway for the fish to get from Lake Erie to Lake Huron. But that's walleyes. I'm sure the muskies don't migrate like that. But
actually, we got to do a study, the different populations. I did a study with the M&R, Muskies Canada, another great group, Muskies Inc., Muskie Canada. I'm part of all those guys, and this Michigan Ontario Muskie Club. But we implanted 100 fish with transmitters, and some of the Canadian fish would actually go down Detroit River, go out into Lake Erie for, a couple weeks and then come back, most of them. Now, we had one fish, I think it was 007 was the tag number, the last digits of the tag. Old 007 went 23 miles across Lake St. Clair, 28 miles down Lake Detroit River to Lake Erie, went all the way to Buffalo, and then returned. And what drove them, 180 miles to Buffalo. And then what really drove those guys, the scientists, nuts, guys like you, is they didn't do it he didn't do it the next year. It wasn't a repeatable, sample. It was he stayed in Lake St. Clair the whole year.
I can tell you, just looking at my life, the dude got divorced and he went on the prowl and he found somebody so he didn't have to travel the next year. It happened. That's why I went to Alaska, man.
Yeah. Same thing, right?
And anybody studying me would have said, why didn't he do that the next year? Well, it's a long story, man.
Right. Man, it's great seeing you there, Jay. That's funny. What a life you've lived.
Oh, well, you know what? You know this. You only get to live life once. And once things get boring, make a change. You only get to live life once.
That's right.
One thing I would like to say, speaking of Lake St. Clair, I belong to an organization called Responsible Anglers United. And what we're doing is we are dedicated to raising money to restock southern Louisiana with largemouth bass. Largemouth bass in southern Louisiana were wiped out by all the droughts and hurricanes we have down here. Because that drought, we get saltwater intrusion, which kills the bass. A hurricane pushes the saltwater 100 miles north, and that kills the largemouth bass. So the reason I'm talking about this now is Tyler Rivette is a Bassmaster Elite Series angler, a pro, and he is going to take somebody fishing on Lake St. Clair, and he's raffling off a fishing trip for smallmouth bass. And this is going to take place right after the Elite Series event this year. You know, they'll fly you up to Detroit, pick you up at your hotel, and they'll fly you up there on their dime. Tyler will come and get you, take you fishing, and take you back.
What a deal. What a great cause.
$20 for a chance. Look, go to Facebook, Responsible Anglers United, like it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. But that will be, I mean, the guy just spent 5-6 days fishing Lake St. Clair. And just think about it. If he wins, you get to fish. Oh, he's already a champion. He's already won a couple of those tournaments. But if he wins, you get to fish with the guy who just won. It's like a 1 in 100 chance, but still, Tyler's got the deck stacked. He's really good. I know the guy. He lives down here. But now back to Matt Firestein, man. You also fish walleyes, don't you?
Yeah, we do. That's April and May. There's a huge population of walleyes in Lake Erie. About 10%, I think, maybe go up the Detroit River. So we got a huge population that migrate up the Detroit River. It usually starts when the water's about 35, 36 degrees. They'll be staging in the area, and then they'll make a big push. And all through April and May, it's just crazy, just like you used to do, vertical jigging, little heavier jigs because we got, deeper water and more current. But, it's great. You come up here, you're in a protected river. You're not out in 4-foot Lake Erie waves. Nobody's puking on the boat. I haven't had anybody puke on the boat in like 4 or 5 years, muskies or walleyes. I think maybe one guy because he drank too much the night before. But yeah, you
got to ruin a fishing trip because you drank too much, man. Come on.
Yeah. You know how it is. They get into this town. I mean, the walleye fishing, the smallmouth fishing, the muskie fishing is second to none. Great pike, perch, sturgeon, unbelievable. But it's also a great city in that we got the pro sports. You got all sorts of casinos and museums and zoos.
That is not the same city I lived near back in 1990. It is completely different.
Absolutely. It is. It's unbelievable what Mayor Dugan and those guys did with this city. It's a place to go and enjoy because there's great restaurants everywhere. They know it's got to be safe. Otherwise, people won't go down there. And it is.
I'd like to put something into perspective. When Matt said 10% of Lake Erie's walleye population, you're talking 100 million at the very height of their population. I don't know how many are in there right now today, but the last estimate I saw was 100 million walleyes. When 10% of those go up the Detroit River, it's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard numbers as high as 300, and those are adult. What you're talking about is adult walleyes. They're not counting all the walleyes. They're just talking about. I don't know when they consider them adults, but adult walleyes. So if there was 300 million, you got to imagine if 10% is 30 million coming up 28 miles of river, they'll come in waves, of course, but as soon as they go into the river, Jay, the current holds them to the bottom. So
pins them.
When you're fishing a lake, they could be anywhere in the water column, whereas in the river, they're with that kind of current, they're on the bottom. So I can tell you, I know where 28 million or 30 million walleyes are. They're all on the bottom.
Guys, you got to do this bucket list. who was my friend Bill Kutka, says bucket list trip. One time I fished the Detroit River for walleyes. I was there with a guy named Dwayne. Can't even remember his name. He's Dwayne White. And he was practicing for a PWT. And I mean, I was jigging with one rod, and I could feel my jig going through walleyes.
Yeah.
They were stacked up, and like every third walleye I actually caught, I was snagging them because there were just so many. I didn't want to snag them, but there were just so many of them there. The hooks I use are sharp. Back then you had to sharpen hooks. Now you don't. But I mean, that is just so exciting, Bam, bam, bam. Wait a minute. That's moot. And all I was doing was bouncing off of one walleye and going down to the next one.
Yes.
I have some comments I'd like to. Bill Kutka, great friend of mine, great freaking walleye fisherman, professional walleye fisherman. He said it's a bucket list trip to go on that thing. Tad Maisie, good friend of mine, said hi. Jeff Quinn, how you doing, Jeff? Gary Bourne Jr. said he'd like to fish a tube like you showed on Toledo Bend Lake. The bass you could catch on that thing would just be, my goodness. My goodness. You wouldn't catch anything but a 13-pounder, and they are in there. Richard Ziegler, good friend of mine, guy who took me fishing. Thank you for taking me fishing again, Richard. Bill Kutka said 72 million over 2-year-old in 2024 in Lake Erie, and he guides Lake Erie. Jim Grant, again, the International Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame member, said the knowledge of Captain Matt is unreal. Book a trip while you can with someone special. Jig a super boat and super gear, simply the best. Yep, Jim knows what he's talking about, man. That's all we can get back to talking about fishing now.
Yeah, you got some great followers there, Jay. Good people.
Thank you. Well, I work hard, and I've been doing this for 5 years now. And you know what? I love podcasting. I get to talk to cool people. I get to fish with cool people. I have some really cool rods made from a good friend of ours.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can't beat that. And being down there in that Mecca where you're at, what a diverse place.
Yeah, man. 4 hours one way, I can be on Toledo Bend. 2.5 hours, I can be on the coast. And I'll tell you, the Grant rods, there is a place I fish from the shore. I can catch trophy speckled trout, but I have to be able to cast about 200 feet. And a Grant Cuda can catapult an ounce weight on a popping cork 200 feet easily. Then you have to be able to set the hook with that much line out.
Mm-hmm.
And the tide's changing, so it's going real fast, and you have to know what you're doing to catch fish there, but also you have to have the best equipment. Like you were saying, I don't leave anything up to chance because I need to get that fish in, take a picture of it, and release it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Grant rods, the jigging rods that Jimmy Grant does, he does special ones for us. They're about 5'6" to 6 foot, and you would not believe how sensitive they are. They're lightweight because you're going to be doing it all day.
Yeah.
But so sensitive with it. They're custom made for a 1 ounce weight. I mean, you can get away with lighter, of course, but man, do they shine. Guys that have never jigged before can catch them on these Grant rods. It's just amazing. The difference. I could give them any other rod and they can't feel bottom. They can't, catch fish. But the Grant rod, you put that in the hand, it's like magic.
And I started out back in the 80s fishing with ugly sticks because I didn't have any money, and you can get an ugly stick back then for about $20. And I didn't break them. I broke so many rods back in the 80s. So many.
Oh, I know.
And I learned what a bite felt like because with the blue Kmart line that you never changed.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
In a freaking thing that probably acts like a small broom handle.
Yeah.
And now, man, it's just so much more enjoyable now because you can feel that with 100 feet of line out. Yeah, I can still feel that because these fish are different than muskies. They're subtle. There's nothing subtle about a muskie.
Right. Yeah, that's our walleyes can be subtle at times.
They can be, yeah. They can be. That's what I like about speckled trout. The first time I hooked into a speckled trout, a big one, and I'm bringing it in, and I felt the head shakes. It gave me goosebumps, man. I'm like, oh my God. And then when I brought it in and looked at it, it had these 2 fangs up in front. And I'm like, those look like walleye teeth. I'm in love.
I had one on a Grant rod this year. I lost a big one. So I got the biggest in the lake, 54 and 5/8 in those 2 different tournaments, a year-long tournament. But and that fish took out 250 feet of 40-pound line. We were bumping the boat in and out of gear. All right, so that was big. And on 40-pound monofilament. So the only time we run mono for muskies is open water trolling, which Lake St Clair is a giant open water lake. There's no reason, to run super braid. The super braid will slip through your clips. There's no stretch, so they can throw the bait easier. So the mono works perfect. But what I was going to say is I had one with 350 feet of line I lost this year, bumping the boat in and out of gear. I just couldn't. And with 350 feet and line monofilament, the head shakes were unbelievable. And it's just amazing. Amazing equipment, the Grant rods. What a difference they make for these giant fish. So one of my buddies loves them for sturgeon. About every application, when you go to his booth, you can see the tuna rods. And I think all the guides that he puts on these musky rods are from tuna guides.
Tuna guides.
I haven't had one problem with one rod, and I've been doing this full time for 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. Great. He does such a great job. And it makes such a difference, like I said, from the walleyes to the muskies. I think fishing, a lot of it, like you were saying, it's about investment,
Yes.
investing, time, education, about, learning your resources. It's about guides and time, time on the water. There's nothing that replaces that. But when you start getting the better equipment, it makes everything more efficient. It also makes it, they're more, the subtle hitting fish makes it a lot easier to catch them. And it's just the way it is. I catch more fish on my Grant rods than I ever did on any other rod.
People ask me a lot. People ask me a lot, is a $400 rod worth it? And I said, well, tell me about your fishing. And if they tell me that, well, I want to take it to the next level, I want to start, fishing tournaments, I say, well, then invest in a good equipment. You need superior equipment. If you're just going to go twice a year, don't spend $300 plus for a rod. Get yourself a Shakespeare. That's fine if you're going to go twice a year. But, if you're like me and I got to be down there every other weekend, boy, I tell you, it's worth every, I just had a friend who sent me a picture of a cuda actually at the Schaumburg show. He said, is this worth it? And I said, every penny. Cuda is my favorite series that Grant makes. I love my cudas.
Yeah, he does a good job. Yeah, and I that's the exact same advice I give people about from boats to rods and reels. About it. Yeah, if you're not going to use it, then there's no reason to get the best. But if you're going to put priority, especially like Grant rods, I've got a Grant rod from 1996. My girlfriend at the time, went to the show, and Grant made a rod for her for muskie fishing, and I still have that rod today. The good rods are going to last a lifetime. Some of the other manufacturers, they broke the tips, the ceramic eyes. all sorts of troubles with them through time. And they don't sit around, I'm fishing them. But on the other hand, the grants, I have not had any problems. So when you make that investment, it's one time and you got the best, and you're not going to outlive it.
What I like about that, I was working with Daiwa for several years, and I just couldn't talk to anybody. If I have, when I buy a Grant rod, I talk to Jim Grant, the owner of the company.
Yeah.
And, over the years I worked with him, I've developed a relationship with him. I can call him and just talk sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the things cool about the muskie industry, Jay, is that it's such a small click thing that most of like you being able to talk to Jim Grant, when you call Muskie Innovations, good chance you get to talk to Brad Rue. You talk Spanky Bates, you get to talk to Dan Moats. That's such a small niche thing, and that's what makes muskie fishing fun. Is you end up meeting all the guys, the main players, and they're all just normal guys. They know that any bait they sell, that they're lucky, because it's not a big thing like bass and walleye and saltwater fish and stripers and trout and salmon and all that. It's a small niche market. So if you guys ever get in, try the muskie fishing, you're going to find a lot of very nice, passionate people that really protect their resource and have a lot of fun, a lot of beautiful water to fish. Lake St Clair, of course. But if you get up, north, it's unbelievable. We got great fishing, but it's also an urban setting. It's
sure.
If you see land. So,
if you see land, yeah.
A lot of times you're out in the middle. It's just open water fish feeding out on bait fish out in the middle. So you may be 20 miles from land, different sides of the lake.
Well, if I ever get in your boat, I won't see it because I'm going to be looking at the rods.
That's the thing about muskies, Jay. You don't have to listen. The reels blow up when they hit.
I bet, but I'm intense.
Oh yeah, it's
I'm
great.
intense.
It's great when you see them hit. So a lot of times we'll have clips. So if they're going out to the boards, they're clipped in to the planer board line.
Sure.
So if you're watching the rods, you'll see that rod double over, and then you'll look out, you'll see that clip release, and the clip will be flipping around the planer board line. And then all of a sudden, that's when the drag takes off. So you're one that'll catch them before the reel goes.
Oh yeah, I'd be running. I used to love to troll for walleyes. When I had my Triton, I'd go up to Green Bay and troll for walleyes and just sit there and watch my boards.
Yeah.
And my partner never had a chance.
Yeah. Those walleyes, the muskies, you don't have to wonder if there's one on. Those. Do you ever see the flags on the planer boards?
Oh yeah, the tattle flags. Yeah, that's offshore. Yeah, offshore's brand.
I always tell guys, I'm like, look at that. He can't even pull the flag up full time. Come on, man. You can do it. You can pull that flag up. Come on, Mr. Walleye. But either way, they great times, and it's a great lake if you guys can get up here and try it. From the smallmouth fishing to the muskie fishing, the sturgeon, it's a great place.
Sturgeon now, huh?
I don't do them, but a lot of the guys, huge population of sturgeon, especially in that right across from where you were at, Jay. The North Channel is one of the main spawning areas from what they've found. And you go up there September, October, there's just boat after boat sturgeon fishing. And some of the guys are averaging, 3 a night. The guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're not all big, but some are really big. So
one of my friends hooked into one of those when he was walleye fishing on the Detroit River, and he said it took him an hour and a half. I'm like, what kind of a jerk would waste an hour and a half of the rest of the guys on the boat's time? And he's like, I didn't think about it that way. I said, man, if I knew it was a sturgeon, I would, and I was walleye fishing, I would grab my line, snap.
Yeah, be done with it.
Be done with it, man. I want to, when I'm walleye fishing, well, you know, I'm intense, man.
Yeah.
I don't mess around when I fish because fishing time, like you said, is precious. Precious, man, you know.
That's
like if I think I have a shark hooked, man, I will snap the line or a jack crevalle. Just no.
Right. That's same with us when we're trolling for muskies. Yet some of our baits may be $100, $150 a piece. Some of that, yeah, headlocks, matlocks, blue water baits, all great baits. And so you snag a sturgeon, we call them show stoppers, and it stops the show because you're not going to break one of those baits off. And so yeah, and the clients love it. They love it. It's on heavy duty. You're using Grant rods, so they can handle it. And what you do is you end up circling them because usually they must swim with their head down, and we snag them back near their tail. And so it's like pulling in a Christmas tree backwards.
You have a tiger by the tail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they want to go, they go. So you end up having to bring in your boards, bring in all the lines, and the clients want a picture of it. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is such a waste of time. Because you only say you got an 8-hour charter. If you screw around with the sturgeon for a half an hour, 40 minutes, I mean, it's an hour out, an hour back. It's 40 minutes to get the fish in, another 20 minutes to get all your rods back out. It's just, but the clients like it. We do exactly what they do, wicked tuna. I used to struggle with getting them. I started tail hooking them, doing the loop around their tail. Yeah, and I just drag them in and throw them on their lap. They get a picture, then I can get rid of that old dinosaur.
That's one of my best memories of guiding. I had out 2 attorneys, and you're talking $100 tip from each one of them. And we were crappie fishing, and we were catching crappies, and I hook into a muskie with a little crappie jig, and I'm like, here. And they took turns, and they had a 40-inch muskie on a 5-foot long crappie rod, ultralight 4-pound test. And we got that thing in, I netted it, and it was never hooked. Somehow I had snagged a shad, and that muskie just would not let go.
Huh.
The little bitty hook, I mean, the little bitty hook, that would have just either broken or straightened out. But he was just so stubborn, and those guys were just thrilled. Like you said, they were fighting the biggest fish they've ever hooked into. They had a memory they'll never forget. I will never forget that. And actually, I took a picture of the shad. It was about that long, and I mean, it was torn to bits. The meat was coming off its bones.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's great, huh? Yeah, they're neat fish, man. The first time I ever had one on, I remember we were up in the UP, so we were going to college. I was at Purdue, and my buddy that I fished with down there, we used to go down to, I think it was Tippecanoe Dam, and fish walleyes and catfish. And anyways, I went up there with him, and we were on this portage-in only lake. We had graduated, and that was sort of like our senior trip together. So we went up there, and we were in a portage-in only lake up in the Hiawatha National Forest in the UP. And we jumped in this canoe, and we were fishing bass and walleyes, pike. And he goes, how deep do you think this lake is? And I'm like, how would I know? We're in a canoe in a lake that we had to drag it to. There's no lake maps of this thing. And he's like, well, let's put these Mans 20 plus. Remember them baits?
Yeah.
Mans, MANNS, 20 plus. He thought you just throw it out and it goes 20 feet down. So we threw it out and started rowing for everything we had. And the rod goes off, and it's fighting better than the pike we caught. We get it up, and we're like, wow, that's not a pike. Nope. That's got to be a muskie. And it was a little bigger than the pike we usually caught. It was probably maybe 32, 34 inches. We were catching, 30-inch pike at best. So we did it again and caught one. So we went back home, got Muskie Hunter magazine, and came back. Yeah, came back with some muskie baits. And at night, no lights, no net, no headlamp. Where he's throwing a big Burmick B1. It was probably 10, 12 inches long. And 10 feet from the boat, the water explodes and 42-incher eats it. And that was it. After that, it was like, I like fishing, but I'd rather be muskie fishing. That's just the way it is. I do all my vacations. I go on muskie. I go to trophy, like these guys that'll go out to Wyoming, Idaho, Anchorage, going for this big game stuff. I go to the best muskie lakes there are because there's giants out there and there's such a neat, challenging fish. So anyways, hopefully you don't get as sick on them as I am.
I can see, muskie fishing is more like a religion.
Yeah.
It's well, that's what I say. Fishing is my lifestyle. It's more than a sport to me. I'm a multi-species fisherman because it's just like trying to say which one of my kids is the favorite.
Right.
People have a favorite kid. If you were young, I would say the one that's behaving the best right now.
Yeah, it's a great sport for sure, and it's great to get those kids involved. I've been working with a little bit with the Anchor. It's called Anchor Bay Bass Club, which is our local Anchor Bay is one of our local high school, and getting those kids introduced bass fishing. There's a couple guys that just do a great job introducing those kids and getting them deals and doing speakers for them and giving them a place to meet, where high school, there's all sorts of influences in high school and good and bad. And that's one that's really good.
We know that. Guys, if you don't know, I went to high school with Matt. There were a lot of influences.
Oh, there sure were.
But Matt, do you have any shout outs you'd like to do? Any thank yous to any organizations, companies?
Yeah, really, just the friends and family, and then certainly, the guys that make it special for me, guys like Red October, Grant Rods, Stealth Tackle, High Seas, I just got a cool drifter. There's a ton of different companies that back me up. About all of them, like I said, it's such a small niche. About all of them really take good care of me. Red October tubes are phenomenal. So Blue Water Baits, Boss Shad, all these guys take care of me. So if you take care of Whopper Stopper, thanks so much. And if you guys come up here and get on my boat, you're gonna see the stuff we run. Ziggy Lures. It's pretty cool deal, and I got a lot of good buddies, good friends that take care of me. So and a shout out to old JC up there. He takes care of me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Matt Firestein, one of my favorite guests. We always have a great time talking old times, talking people we knew in high school. Also, I'd like to remind everybody, Responsible Anglers United, look them up on Facebook. We're having an event, kind of like a Ducks Unlimited banquet on February 8th. If you live down here in the southern Louisiana, go ahead. It's $50 for all the drinks and all y'all you can eat food. Come on down and have some Cajun food, talk fishing, and we're going to have all kinds of big raffles, and just like a Ducks Unlimited, silent auctions, live auctions, raffles, 50-50 raffles, and some good fellowship with some great fishermen. I mean, people down here, the reason I like it down here, these guys they're kind of like the guys from Michigan. All they think about is fishing and hunting. And those are my people.
There you go.
Because, that's pretty much, wow. Fishing and family, the two things I think about.
Absolutely.
But man, been great podcasting with you again, man. I always have a great time talking to you. We could do this for another 4 hours, but I got things I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I thank you very much for having me on, Jay. It's always great time. You're so knowledgeable, and you're a good influence on the industry in a
Thank you.
whole. And I just thank you so much for what you do. And I thank you very much for having me on. And I hope so. Hopefully, maybe we open some eyes to some fisheries up here. If not, you got to hear some old guys babble on for a little while about some fun stuff.
You know, I'm going to retire in a couple of years. I'm going to tour all the places I used to fish. And of course, Michigan is going to be one of the. Michigan is such a cool state, guys. If you've never been there, go ahead and go there, man, because anything you want is fishing except for redfish. They're not there.
That's for sure.
But, you know, man, crappies, bluegills, there's huge yellow perch in Lake St. Clair. And those are my favorite fish to eat, freshwater fish to eat.
Right.
Just anything you want.
Oh, it's it's a hell of a state, huh? I mean, you're surrounded by water other than the Indiana-Ohio border. The rest of it's Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, or Lake Huron, Lake Erie. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
One of my favorite memories about fishing was in Van Etten Lake, which is right across the street from Worth Smith Air Force Base. I was getting out of the service. I had absolutely no money. I went fishing with this old guy, and I hooked into something huge. And I said, "It's a big northern." He said, "No, it's not, kid. No, it's not." I'm like, "What could that be? What could that?" He said, "Just settle down." I'm jumping up and down trying to bring this fish in with a 5-foot long ultralight ugly stick and 4-pound test line. It was a 34-inch walleye.
Wow, that's a huge walleye.
Oh, yeah, I've been on Erie. I've been on Green Bay. I fished with some of the greatest fishermen in the world, including Tommy Scarlett, Ted Takasaki, and I could go on and on. Daryl Christensen. And the biggest one I ever caught was 31 inches after that. And I caught this on old Kmart line. And that was in Michigan, guys. Michigan. They're there. These fish come out of these Great Lakes, and they get huge. They just sit there and gobble up them bait fish all their whole lives, including Matt's boys, the muskies, 54 inches. 54 inches. My biggest muskie is like 45. So that just tells you 54 inches is.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Comparing.
Yeah, there's bigger ones out there, Jay.
There's bigger than 54?
Yeah, I think my biggest on this lake's 56 and a half.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think I've got let's see, probably 6 over 55. You know, so 55 and a quarter, 55 and 3/8, 55 and another 55 and a quarter, a 56, a 56 and a half, and a 56, another 56 even.
So guys, Whopper Stopper Muskie Charters right there. Jim Grant was thinking. He put up his phone number. Give Matt a call. Give him a call. But what I'd like to tell you, it's Wednesday, guys. Make your plans. Get out fishing. In your last days, you're not going to remember all those great times you had watching TV. Make memories. Take your friends fishing. Take your wife fishing. Take your kids fishing.
Great stuff, Jay.
Great stuff, man. Just get out there, guys. Go fishing because, yeah, I am a podcaster, but you're going to learn how to fish by getting out on the water.
Yeah.
I just like to have time talking to these. I just have a good time talking to these guys.
Right.
All right, guys. I'm sticking around, Matt, for 2 minutes afterwards. I just want to say a few things to you. And with that, I'm going to end the podcast, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks very much, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the kind words, Jimmy.